Hello, and welcome to Your Secret Weapon Against Cyber Attacks, Your Data. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources, and I'd especially like to call your attention to a couple of things from Rubrik. There's a link to the state of data security, the human impact of cybercrime, and a PDF about becoming unstoppable against ransomware. Both great resources. I highly encourage you to check those out. Now, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenter. So to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. At the end of the event, we'll look at all the questions that came in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. Now with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our presenter today, Veer Choksi, who's a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik. Veer, welcome.
Thank you, Scott. And hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy to be with you today. My name is Veer. I'm part of Rubrik's product marketing team, and my goal today is to introduce the concept of data security and to explain, as the title here suggests, how you can use your own data to improve your cyber defense. So we all know that the cyber threat landscape has become challenging over the past few years. We've all seen stats like this. Now, whether or not it's ransomware specifically or something else like an operational failure, hardware failure, for example, a malicious insider, or even something like accidental deletion, cyber incidents typically means that you lose your data, and you could call this a denial of data event. And the bottom line is that when your data is down, your business is down. And cyber attacks are on the rise for several different reasons. The attack surface has grown. It's easy to become a cyber criminal these days due to ransomware as a service providers. It's obviously financially rewarding for the bad guys, and these criminals continue growing more sophisticated in their attacks. So it's not so much a question of if, but rather when. Now, traditionally, cybersecurity has focused on infrastructure security around prevention, detection, and investigation. However, infrastructure security is primarily focused on protecting systems, users, networks, and applications, and not so much securing of the actual data, which is every organization's most valuable asset and the actual target of the attack. Now, despite significant investments in infrastructure security, the risk of a breach can only be reduced, and it can't be totally eliminated. Attackers are still managing to penetrate these defenses. So just as important as reducing the likelihood of a successful attack is reducing the impact of an attack. How quickly can business as usual be restored if an attack were to happen? And securing data is the only way to truly secure the business, especially at a time when ransomware is such a pervasive threat that remains financially rewarding for the cyber criminals. So we need to have a mindset of assume breach and must ensure that data is available, safe, and recoverable in the event of an incident. And because it's the data itself that is the target of the attackers, we need to have security at the point of data, what we call data security, to keep data safe and recover it faster. Having a strong security posture requires more than just infrastructure security, and so that is where data security comes in. Data security complements traditional infrastructure security to fully secure data assets and as such secure the business and defend it against cyber attacks. And so when paired together, infrastructure security and data security reduce cyber risk by reducing both the likelihood and impact of cyber attacks. So let's zoom in on those three elements. Data security is made up of three pillars: data resilience, which is about cyber-proofing your data with secure backups; data observability, which is about monitoring risks and being able to investigate quickly; and data remediation, which is about rapidly recovering what you need. So let's go through each of these one by one, starting with the first one, data resilience. So teams are asking questions like, can my backups be discovered by bad actors? Can my backup data be seen by bad actors? Can my backups be modified? Can my admins be compromised? Can my retention rules be tampered with? And do we have any fail-safes if everything is compromised? And so data resilience is about securing your data from insider threats or ransomware with air-gapped, immutable, access-controlled backups. And I want to focus on three things here. First thing is the logical air gap, so they can't find it. And what that means is that the backup storage cannot be discovered using common network protocols. Second thing I want to focus on here is immutability. Rubrik has an append-only file system, which means that once the data is written to backup storage, it's written and it cannot be changed. And the third key element here is access control at every level. So that prevents account compromise through granular role-based access controls and natively enforced multi-factor authentication and time-based one-time passwords for all user logins. So moving on to that second pillar of data security, data observability. Teams are asking questions like, have there been unusual deletions or modifications of my data? What files and apps were affected in an attack? When did malware first enter our backups? And was sensitive data part of such an attack? So those kinds of questions can be addressed with data observability. So the key point here is that if you're taking regular backup snapshots, you're in a good position to recruit your own data in the fight against ransomware. And that's because you're capturing the longitudinal time series history of data if you're protecting your data with a solution like Rubrik. In addition, Rubrik manages metadata, and that includes its content, users, and access privileges. And so by scanning hundreds of snapshots, this data observability engine can generate signals that are fed into a highly trained machine learning model, building a historical baseline against which new data can be compared to find anomalous modifications, deletions, and encryptions. This observability engine allows you to continuously monitor your data for ransomware, sensitive data exposure, and indicators of compromise. So what does this allow you to do? You can determine the blast radius of an attack with ransomware monitoring and investigation by identifying abnormal deletions, modifications, and encryptions, generating high accuracy alerts. You can reduce sensitive data exposure and manage exfiltration risk with sensitive data monitoring and management. And that lets you discover the sensitive data, where it lives, and who has access to it. And there are about 60 pre-built analyzers that align with common policies and regulatory frameworks such as GDPR and PCI DSS, so that you can easily discover PII, credit card numbers, driver's license numbers, passport numbers, etc. You can also define custom analyzers. And lastly, you can prevent malware reinfection with threat monitoring and hunting, which is a service that can find indicators of compromise, and that lets you identify the initial point scope, and time of infection. And so having backups is not just a problem that the IT organization handles. There's also a tremendous amount of security intelligence that can be derived from your backups, and which is why both IT and security professionals should care about having good quality backups. And the last pillar here, data remediation. So teams are asking questions like, how do I automate the recovery of my most critical applications? How can I surgically recover just what I need? And how can I recover data without reintroducing malware? Rubrik's data remediation capabilities allow you to surgically and rapidly recover your apps, files, or objects while avoiding malware reinfection. And so you can recover safely at any scale and granularity. You can quarantine infected data, you can restore the impacted application's files or objects, and you can orchestrate the recovery of applications so that it happens in a standardized fashion. And our solution, Rubrik Security Cloud, addresses all three pillars of data security and allows you to secure your data wherever it lives across enterprise, cloud, and SaaS. Now, I just want to reiterate what makes this approach unique and comprehensive, starting with the time series aspect of it. So the point here is that if you're capturing immutable images at regular intervals, you can time travel through your data to understand how data changed and when data changed. And that makes for really powerful anomaly detection. The second component of this is metadata, which means data about data. So you're not just looking at the underlying data, you're also looking at where it resides, the sensitivity of the content, and which users have access to what. And so again, because you're looking at that time series data across your environment, you can derive really powerful security intelligence that informs your incident response decisions. You can also act on automated remediation recommendations very quickly. And so with Rubrik Security Cloud and its three core elements, you can defend your data against cyber threats, continuously monitor data for risks, and recover business operations very quickly. Now, being cyber resilient is about more than just having the right technology. Rubrik also offers a ransomware recovery warranty, which is something that guarantees that your data will be available for recovery in case of an incident. And we will actually pay out up to $5 million in recovery-related expenses if that is not the case. And we've never had to pay anything out. Also included with Rubrik support at no extra cost is our ransomware response team. And that is a team of experts that's there to guide you during those high stress moments after a cyber attack. And they have helped perform hundreds of successful recoveries. Rubrik Zero Labs is Rubrik's research group that delivers vendor-agnostic insights on reducing data security risks. And so please do check out the recent State of Data Security report. And I want to leave everyone with an example. The question that we should all be asking ourselves is, can we afford to wait during downtime caused by an incident? And how much is that going to cost in financial terms and also in more difficult to quantify non-financial terms like reputational damage? Lang's Building Supplies is a Rubrik customer that was able to fend off a ransomware attack with hardly any interruption to business as usual. They ended up not having to pay any ransom. They didn't lose any data, and they were able to recover successfully because they had Rubrik's data security solution in place. And so I just want to close by remarking that, of course, the most important aspect for an organization is your data. And you can have really great cybersecurity controls at the application level, network level, endpoint level, etc. But if an attacker does manage to get in and deny you access to your data, are you going to be able to recover within an acceptable time frame? Is your data high quality and highly available? We all need to have good answers to those questions. And in today's age, cyber resilience is about a lot more than just disaster recovery. And that's why we believe in security at the point of data. Backup infrastructure actually should be a key element of data security. And so, in a nutshell, the strongest security posture you can adopt must include securing your data, which is your most precious asset. So thank you all for your interest, and let's see if there are any questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great presentation, Vera. And that Lang's example, just showing, you see the averages for ransom demands, but seeing, in black and white somebody's real world experience of, being asked for $15 million, just really shows what's at stake. And obviously they were able to not have to do that because of their backup system with Rubrik. So that's a great example, but really appreciate that. Now we do have some questions coming in here, and I'll start with one that I have, which is just about, you hear how important air gaps are. They're not always realistic in the sort of connected world that we live in. How does the logical air gap work that you were talking about?
Sure. So Rubrik has a purpose-built file system that does not expose backup data via open network protocols. And so because the backup storage is not online, nor is it accessible over the network, there is a logical air gap that blocks data from being discoverable or accessible. And so when that is coupled with strong role-based access controls and multi-factor authentication, the logical air gap can deliver the same or better risk mitigation as a physical air gap.
Okay. All right, great. Another one we have here, does Rubrik integrate with other security tools?
That's a good question. Yes. And so from the start, Rubrik has been built with an open API architecture. And so with this API extensibility that allows you to quickly collaborate with cross-functional teams and establish a common view of data risk and threat insights across tools. And so some of our most popular integrations are with SIEM and SOAR solutions such as Microsoft Sentinel and Palo Alto Networks Cortex XSOAR. There are a number of other ones. And basically, so Rubrik intelligence can be fed into a SIEM solution, and also Rubrik workflows such as threat hunting workflows or automated recovery workflows can be invoked from other tools like the Palo Alto Networks Cortex XSOAR. There are a few other exciting integrations with other security tools that are in the works, so stay tuned for that.
Okay, great. And speaking of integrations, Adam has a question here. He's asking if you can explain. Oh, sorry, the other question came in and it rolled on me. He's wondering if you can explain orchestrated recovery a little more.
Sure. So orchestrated application recovery is about allowing you to define these blueprints, these recovery blueprints based on applications, so that the right sequence of events happens in the right order. You're able to test these recovery workflows using the Rubrik solution, including Rubrik Cyber Recovery as well. And so when it comes time to recover a specific application, you can execute those steps in the right sequence, in the right order, so that all the pieces fall all the pieces fall into place correctly.
Okay, super. Could you describe how the threat monitoring and hunting works?
Sure. So this is a service that lets you prevent malware reinfection by analyzing the time series history of data for indicators of compromise to identify the initial point, scope, and time of infection. So you can scan your backup snapshots for threats And again, I was using the example of the analogy of time traveling through your data. So you scan your backup snapshots for these indicators of compromise, and that can be based on YARA rules, file path, or file hashes. And I may not have mentioned this during the presentation, but what's great about all of these data observability services is that since they are scanning on backups, there's no impact to production. So no performance impact. You're not eating up resources on your production system. And the threat monitoring and hunting solution does integrate with common security solutions like the Palo Alto Networks Cortex XSOAR solution, so that you can execute those threat hunting workflows from tools that you already have in your environment.
I like that time travel analogy. That's fun and a great way to think about it. And Gilbert has a question here that we see come up a lot, which is just, how do you select, to back up data that has not been compromised, merely changed through normal usage, and data just prior to it being corrupted or infected?
Let me scroll and read that one.
Yeah, it's looks like it's number 20.
I see it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's how do you select data that has not been compromised, merely changed through normal usage, and data just prior to being corrupted? Yeah, okay. So because you're capturing those backup snapshots at regular intervals, you can establish a strong baseline of what normal behavior actually looks like. That's what the machine learning model is doing, so that deviations from what is the normal baseline, that's what's going to get flagged in an alert. And the B part of the question, that's what is addressed. The B part of the question being, how do you find the data just prior to it being corrupted, infected? That's what the threat monitoring and hunting solution does, is because it's immutable storage, you can go back in time and find which snapshot it was. Was it 6 days ago? Was it 3 hours ago? When the indicator of compromise was able to enter your system, and therefore when you're doing your recovery, you have greater confidence that you're recovering to a point in time that's actually safe.
Okay, great. Yeah, and that leads me to a question, which is, the threat monitoring and hunting is so interesting. What are some of the indicators of compromise that that you guys are looking for with the tool?
Yeah, so those can be defined based on YARA rules, file paths, or file hashes. You typically get these threat intelligence feeds from, it can come from law enforcement and government agencies when they've identified a new threat that's out there. You can get them. The cybersecurity community, once something has been identified, shares what these indicators look like, so that once something has been seen somewhere, it can be hunted for, it can be swept for and found in other companies' systems too. And so you can ingest these threat intelligence feeds and perform those indicator of compromise scans.
Gotcha. All right, great. Let's see. Lynn is asking about the question is the effectiveness of using data to defend against cyber attacks depends heavily on the quality and quantity of the data. Could you introduce some best practices to validate quality and quantity? So to me, that sounds like potentially a whole other webcast. But is there anything that you can say about some of those best practices?
Yeah, so there are data integrity checks, like checksum validations and things that the system does to ensure that that the data isn't corrupted. That's all that I could say about that at this point.
Okay. All right, super. Well, I think that we've gone through a lot of questions here. Really appreciate your time and your willingness to answer all these audience questions. This has been great. Just any last thoughts or recommendations for how people could get started with Rubrik?
If anything that I said here sounds interesting to anyone, we encourage all of you to please get in touch, and please do check out the resources that we've made available here in the handout section.
Okay. All right. Well, Veer, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone.
All right. And before we wrap up, we have one more piece of business. It's the Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of that $250 Amazon gift card today is Jed Fleming from Missouri. So congratulations to Jed. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for your great questions. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.